Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Hartglass, and you're listening to It's All About Food. Guess who's joining me today? My best of everything, Gary De Mattei. That kind of
Uh,
rhymes. Look who's joining me today, Gary De Mattei. Hey, Gary.
hey, Karen, that does rhyme.
And nothing rhymes with rhymes, except maybe the times.
That does rhyme with rhymes. You're a poet and you don't know it. Hope you don't blow it.
Oh, boom. Yes, hello everyone. We're just warming up here, me and Gary, and we're going to bring you all the things you want to know about food today because it's all about food.
Or all the things you don't want to know about food,
There is that.
because we do that too.
Yeah, well, because
Like
some of
some
the
people
news
pop,
about food isn't so nice.
right. And some people might say, oh, gee, I would rather not know what you guys are up to because I don't want to be any more depressed than I already am. But I like depression. So go ahead, depress the hell out of me, Karen. I'm ready for it. I'm ready. Yes, and.
Yes,
Yes,
and
and more
all right, let's
depression.
do it. Let's do it. Okay. I thought first we'd cover some of the headlines in the news.
In the news with Karen Hartglass.
Okay, everybody, I'm Karen Hartglass, and thanks for joining me at In the News. And I'm here with Gary De Mattei.
Hi, I'm Gary De Mattei, and we're going to talk about news. What have you got to say about in the news with Karen Hartglass?
I wanted to talk about 11 Madison Park.
11 Madison Park. Oh, you mean 11 Madison Park, the fine dining restaurant in the heart of New York City, owned and operated by Chef Daniel Hum.
Ba-dum bum.
Is that the 11 Madison Park you're talking about? The one on.
Yes, it is. And it's been in the news many times, Michelin starred, expensive tasting menus, and then it went vegan.
Oh, it did create quite a buzz when it went vegan.
It did. And people were excited and people were complaining because that's what we do. We complain.
Because wasn't it a tasting menu that cost about 325 bucks or something?
Yeah, it's expensive. And
And a lot of
there's
vegans and then there's of course the cost of wine, and a lot of vegans don't drink wine. So they were offering some non-alcoholic stuff. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
originally my take on 11 Madison and 11 Madison going vegan and whether it was right or wrong to charge so much money because many people can't. And with so much food insecurity in the world, how is it we can tolerate a restaurant serving vegan food and saying it's good? Because a part of veganism is acknowledging exploitation and not supporting exploitation. And in some ways, charging so much money for an event like this goes against that bigger concept of veganism, this inclusive and kindness and compassionate, blah, blah, blah. But the way I looked at it was it's okay because it's art. And yeah, it's expensive. And we haven't gone, although I've considered it, because sometimes when it comes to seeing live theater, we have spent some serious dollars seeing some particular pieces that we thought were important in our lives. And so I viewed this daily event at 11 Madison Park as a live theater with food. That's
Right.
kind of how I justified it.
Live cruelty-free theater.
Yeah, when they went vegan, and it was awesome when they went vegan. Yes, veganism is for everyone. But if we're going to do anything at any level, fast food or fine food, it should still be vegan. So this was great. And now for your sound effect, Gary.
In the real news with Karen Hartglass. Here I hear your tone shift a little bit, and you're now going to get into the real part of the real
Yeah,
news.
so they're not going to be vegan for much longer. I think they're transitioning back to some flesh offerings like lobster,
Starting in
fleshy
mid-October,
items. Yeah.
October 25th, October 2025, guests will have the option to enjoy a fully plant-based menu or to include select animal proteins in a few courses of their meal. So they're leading on their website with you can get a plant-based meal or you can select some animal proteins.
And
So
their reasoning is it's more inclusive,
it's
which
more,
is a very limp excuse. They probably are not doing as well financially and want to make some more money because it's all about capitalism.
and so what's the reaction been? What are you seeing?
Okay, well, first, you and I know it's really hard to run a restaurant and profit. So anybody who goes into that business, we have a lot of respect for them. It's
Right,
hard.
right,
And at that level, it's harder because their dishes require craft, skill, and time. And it's not just about filling your bellies. As I said before, this is a live theater event around food.
right, right.
But I'm not happy about it. And many people are not happy about it for many different reasons. And then, of course, there are many non vegans and some vegans who are trying to be all inclusive and groovy and saying, this is fine, but it's not fine
Right. And I
because they're
know
going backwards.
exactly. And I know that you and I would prefer people be spending this much time talking about restaurants like Candle Cafe, not far from Madison on 28th and 3rd. We go there quite a bit, as much as we can. I'm sure we hope people would be talking about them because they are hanging in there. They are a real story, meaning a real story in the news that we're going to touch on later in this podcast. But so stick around. But we're going to talk about what everybody else is piling on about first, and that's 11 Madison, because it's fun. It's fun to pile on, especially when, they tried and now they're realizing that it is very difficult to run a vegan restaurant. It is probably the most difficult thing to do in the city of New York, where there are so many meat centric restaurants that are fine dining restaurants, and people just can't get enough of them. And then you had this 11 Madison Park and this great story about how this guy said, I realized that plant-based is really the way we should be going. All of us should be going. And he said some wonderful things. He didn't compromise his Michelin starred quest for continuing to get that recognition. He kept going, and yet he said, okay, I'm going to get some complaints because it's, going to be over $300 for a tasting menu. And you're not going, as you said, you're going for the art. You're not going for the food because you're going for the food art, but you're not going to get stuffed because, I mean, on a tasting menu anywhere, you're not going to fill up. It's not going to be grub. It's going to be sitting and just enjoying the entire experience. And they will go above and beyond for their client. When you go to a restaurant like that, the reason you get a Michelin star isn't just the food, it's also the service. And if anybody has watched the
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 bear.
Bear, they will get an inside look into exactly what that's like, the kind of pressure that they're on to give the client, the diner, the guest, the ultimate experience, never letting up for 1 second, even if it means leaving the restaurant and going out and buying a deep dish pizza for your guests who are leaving Chicago because they are leaving the next day and they haven't experienced a deep dish pizza yet. Giving that deep dish pizza to your chef and having him put his spin on the Chicago deep dish pizza still, that Michelin starred spin. Anyway,
Okay, everybody's got to know that Gary is a big fan of The Bear. We've watched it together, and Gary has since watched it over and over because he can relate to it. And there are so many scenes that resonate with him.
I mean, the reason the Bear resonates with me is because I've been in the restaurant business. I know how hard people work. I know that they work incredibly hard with full knowledge of the fact that they may close in 6 months. It hits all the buttons for me because I've been a tremendous fan of restaurants and opened my own. I know how difficult it is. Having said that, I need to come back to 11 Madison. I don't know how I feel about it because I've never been there. I probably will never go there, especially now that they're going back to selling meat. But I thought the idea was really cool. But isn't it a fact that all vegan restaurants are kind of floundering now?
I don't
Right.
know that they're all floundering. There are a few restaurants, companies. There are two specifically in New York that I believe are still doing pretty well. They offer some hip, trendy kind of concepts. But the old school ones, I hate calling them old school, but the ones that have been around and base their menu on real food,
Right.
not these highly processed meat analogs and other things to base their dishes on, they are not doing very well. And then there are a number of fast food chains in New York and other places. I think they're doing okay. So the message there is that the majority of people, vegan or not, don't care what's in their food. But can I add something here based on the price of 11 Madison Park? Because I know you don't read the comments after an article
No.
in the New York Times, but I do. A number of comments focused on the fact that they didn't want to pay that much money for vegetables. And the
Mm.
point being that vegetables don't have the value that animal products do. And there is the crux of what we need to educate and combat about.
Yeah.
Because vegetables are valuable. They nourish us, they're gentle on the planet. Animal products are full of cruelty. People want to pay more for cruelty? Is that it?
That's it. They want to pay more for cruelty. And if they dug a little deeper, and nobody does that anymore, except for you, if they dug a little deeper, they would see that 11 Madison is all about their vegetables. I'm not going to give this person any more of my time by exploring his gardens and where he sources his vegetables, other than to say it's pretty impressive. In your continuing your conversation about art, his vegetables are grown very, very finely, and it's extraordinary how he praises and prizes and covets his veggies. It's extraordinary.
On the same sort of theme is the news about Beyond Beef. So there was a rumor Beyond Beef was going bankrupt. And then Beyond Beef came back and said, no, 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 no. We deny this. We're not going bankrupt. We may be restructuring a little. We may be laying off some people, reducing costs, etc. But Beyond Beef is not the great thing that we thought it was when it first came out. It went public and the stock went sky high and then came down. And it was in a lot of fast food restaurants. It still is in some, but not as many. I've said this numerous times before, and I just want to riff on it briefly. If you're going to be eating fast food, if you're going to be eating burgers, of course, in my humble opinion, it's better that they be plant-based. But I would prefer that people eat real food. I'm tired of this theme, Gary, but we did found an organization called Responsible Eating and Living. The acronym is REAL. We're all about real food. Beyond Beef is not a real food. At least it's not cell meat. It doesn't require that much intense technology, but it is processed. And, anybody would enjoy a burger made with whole grains and beans and spices, as long as it's served with all the right schmears and accoutrement on a nice bun.
Well, I think it's because people still feel, and we talk about this ad nauseum,
Ad nauseum.
people still feel that beef is where they get their protein. And again,
Yeah.
going back to why vegetables don't have the value that dead animals have, I think is because the marketing that has been done about them. So then why try and duplicate the taste of meat? I guess I've answered my own question, because these guys felt, well, if people are going to want the taste of meat, we're going to try to make an analog or a product that tastes so much like meat that you think you're eating meat. And that was always the problem with you, I remember, and me.
Yep.
When we heard about this. And we had friends that were investing. People thought of it as a way to invest in something that was going to end the killing of animals, because here was something that people would just like automatically transition to and say, hey, this is better than killing animals, right? And it tastes just like I want it to taste. So I get why that happened, but we just completely underestimated the bloodthirsty public
Yeah.
the humans that have to have this flesh. And yet they don't want to see how it's processed. They don't want to see how it's brought to their grocery store meat department. They just want to have it there. I don't care. I've heard people say, I don't care. I don't care that I just don't want to see it, but I don't care that a cow has to die so that I can have a burger. And I
Yeah.
think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about we're never going to accept Beyond Meat because we're trying to, instead of giving plant-based eaters something that's really wonderful and tasty, they're saying we have to give meat eaters something that acts like meat but isn't going to involve any cruelty other than maybe the cruelty that one would feel when trying to duplicate the taste of cooked flesh and the look of cooked flesh.
Yeah.
And that in
Oh,
and of itself is kind of strange. I mean, what did they do at Beyond Beef? Did they go and buy a pound of hamburger and say, well, let's look at this, let's examine it, let's
oh
taste it?
no, Impossible did that. They made it really look and bleed like meat. But that's old news. I want to just add that we have numerous recipes at Responsible Eating and Living. There are many great veggie burger recipes out there. We have one called the Healthy World Burger that I recently simplified. If anybody ever looked at that recipe and said, oh my God, this looks too complicated, because it comes with 4 grains, and I would cook each grain separately because they all require a different time. Well, I don't do that anymore, and it's fine. I cook them all in the Instant Pot and then add the herbs and spices, and it's a great burger. It's a great foundation for veggie meatballs or any kind of meaty kind of product like meatloaf. And we make a billion of them and keep them in the freezer, and it works out great. So I'll link that in this podcast post. I want to talk about now, Gary, how
Yeah, let's go to our next subject.
how nature is so smart. Nature doesn't need us, and nature sends us little clues from time to time about how the path we're going down maybe isn't the right one. Okay, we got a little hint a few years ago with COVID. Okay, and we know that all the viruses that we get are related to causing animals to live in close proximity where disease can happen, viruses can happen, viruses can morph into more deadly strains. And so COVID came along. But now we have something called alpha-gal syndrome.
Alpha-gal syndrome.
I just want to read what that is.
Please do.
Let's talk about it. Alpha-gal syndrome, which is also known as alpha-gal allergy or mammalian meat allergy, is a type of acquired allergy characterized by a delayed onset of symptoms after ingesting mammalian meat. The condition results from past exposure to certain tick bites and was first reported in 2002. Symptoms of the allergy vary greatly between individuals and include rash, hives, nausea, vomiting, difficulty breathing, drop in blood pressure, dizziness, faintness, diarrhea, severe stomach pain, and possibly anaphylaxis. Alpha-gal is a short, cute name for a larger, more complicated name for this syndrome. And what's cute about it is, a friend of mine mentioned this to me last year, that alpha-gal sounds like a superhero.
Yeah, it does.
And he suggested that we come up with a superhero named alpha-gal that fights climate change with a vegan diet. Remember that, Gare?
I do, yes.
Well, I was thinking about it recently because you sent me an article in the New York Times, Why is Martha Vineyard going vegan? It's all about tick bites. And that was an interesting article where more and more people are getting bitten by these ticks and can't eat meat anymore. So on Martha's Vineyard, they're offering more vegan items.
Yeah, that was a great piece. That was by Pete Wells. And it's Why is Martha's Vineyard going vegan? It's all about tick bites. Islanders' diets are being upended by an onslaught of alpha-gal syndrome, a tick-induced allergy to meat and dairy.
Yeah, it's not just meat now. They realize it's also dairy.
Yeah. So You were just saying this, and I'm just going to finish your thought on this, that nature is now finding out, in my opinion, nature is now saying, let's get even with all of those meat eaters and let's get our ticks busy
And punish
biting,
us and get us
biting.
to stop eating animal flesh and
Yeah.
their dairy products.
You think it'll stop them?
No, but it's a start. But here's the thing. This concept of creating some sort of superhero named Alpha Gal, which I think is a great idea. Alpha Gal, who saves the world from climate change by preventing people from eating
And
beef.
alpha gal should look like a tick. That's what I think.
Oh, okay. Well, we can riff on this. It's a good idea. A cute little tick. But I was looking into it when that article from Martha's Vineyard came out, and apparently somebody recently, earlier in the year, came out with a children's book about Alpha Gal.
Okay.
And I was a little excited about it until I didn't read the book, but I went to this person's website and realized they didn't quite give the message
That you were hoping to find.
exactly. I did not get that. So they talk about the syndrome and I guess explain it in a way that children can understand and may not feel so bad about having. And then all of the things that you can do, they recommend reading labels and different substitutes. And unfortunately, one of the substitutes they recommend in place of beef tallow is duck fat.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, so they missed the mark here. But it is an unfortunate, very unfortunate syndrome because it's not just about eliminating or not being able to eat beef and in some cases dairy, but there are personal care products, medications, different things that they also have to be careful about. So it's a very serious syndrome.
And it also, in looking at this piece, lets you know, and all of the things that you're saying, lets you know how many products we use, not just products that we eat, but products that we put on our body is, as you've
Contains
said,
animal products.
contains animal products. Does this mean also that if they have leather interior in their automobile, they will get
Rashes and things. I haven't looked into it that
I
far.
bet it does, Karen. Wink, wink. I bet it does. Wink, wink.
Anyway,
This is distressing, but in a kind of a sick
in a
way.
good way, in a sick way.
In a sick way, it's kind of great. And I see that in the article, there's a lot of folks that are now pushing their veggie products, non-dairy cheeses and things. So that's interesting.
Good. Yeah, that's a
very,
positive. Yeah.
very,
Meanwhile,
very good.
to avoid tick bites, of course, we don't want to keep you out of nature because walking and being in nature is part of who we are. It's important. But if you're in an area where there are known to be ticks, and there are more and more of those, you should dress appropriately with long sleeves and long pants and
Yeah, and gloves and
and a
hats.
mosquito net over you.
And hats with nets. Just put yourself in a bag and go out there and have a great time. Just make sure you can see. No, it's
Right.
going to happen. People are going to get bit by ticks, especially in this area where they're plentiful.
Not all tick bites give you alpha gal.
Okay, well, that's a really good thing to bring up.
Yeah.
Not all tick bites give you alpha gal yet. They don't give you alpha gal yet.
Yet. Okay, can we go to the next one, Gar?
We can.
Okay, I want to talk
Of
about
course.
spinach and oxalates.
Spinach and oxalates.
Or oxalates.
Are those shoes or what? The latest shoe fashion for
No,
vegan?
they are not. Oxalates are what some people call anti-nutrients, along with lectins and phytates and alkaloids. These are all things that come in plant foods that have been shown to be good for us. But there's a movement of people that are trying to get us scared. But I want to focus on the oxalates for a moment today for one particular reason. If you are concerned about oxalates, you can Google, there's tons of information online about it. And there are people who really have to be careful about their oxalate consumption because they may be prone to kidney stones. And kidney stones can form from numerous reasons. Too much, certainly meat and dairy and eggs can contribute to creating stones, and processed foods with added phosphorus and too much sodium, those can give you calcium phosphate kidney stones. And then there are uric acid kidney stones from too much acid in the urine. Again, likely because of high intake of animal protein, sugary drinks, and alcohol. And then there are cysteine kidney stones, and that's a genetic condition that can lead to stones, but also from too much sodium eating and eating animal protein. Okay, but then there's also these calcium oxalate stones, and that's what I'm talking about now. They're the most common type, and it's when the calcium in the urine combined with oxalates. And there are some people that are prone to these kinds of stones, and they're advised to follow a low oxalate diet, meaning they should consume less than 100 milligrams of oxalic acid daily. And we talk about oxalic acid and oxalates interchangeably. They're not exactly the same. Oxalic acid has 2 more hydrogens than oxalates, but they can kind of morph back and forth depending on their environment into each other.
Always this scientist. And for those of you out there who are as lost as I am right now,
no.
Caryn will go into detail after this commercial message.
No,
I'm kidding.
I want to get to the point.
The point
is, there are these lists out there that tell you how much oxalates there are in foods, especially if you've had these kidney stones and what you should watch out for. But a little story I had heard that someone maybe a decade or 2 ago had become vegetarian and then vegan and was eating a lot of processed foods, veggie meats, etc., just like we were talking about before, and processed foods. And this person became diabetic. And in an effort to reverse that, this person did a lot of reading and decided to go whole food, plant-based. Great. And was feeling great. This person was eating a lot of spinach. And then at some point was diagnosed with kidney disease, and was blown away. This person,
they really must have been eating a lot of spinach.
Well, that's the point. And this person wanted to get the message out. And so that's part of what I'm doing here, that eating too much spinach can, in a small amount of people, result in kidney disease. And so a close friend of mine recently told me that she had elevated creatine from a recent doctor's exam, and the doctor was telling her to avoid phosphorus and drink more water. My first question was, how much spinach are you eating? And sure enough, she was having spinach smoothies every day with almond milk and chia seeds.
Wow.
Now let's go into that a little bit. When you look at a list of foods with high oxalate content, spinach is above and beyond in oxalate content than any other food I've seen on the list. When it's recommended to keep to 100 milligrams per day, spinach contains, well, raw spinach, for example, has about 650 to 1290 milligrams of oxalate per 100-gram serving. I think it is 100-gram serving. Cooked spinach, the spinach reduces down, so it takes less cooked spinach to get more oxalates. But cooked, about a half a cup is 755 milligrams. That's a lot. And rhubarb is also up there, 500 milligrams, Swiss chard, 700 milligrams. But everything else that's considered high is like an order of magnitude less, like maybe 70 or 80 milligrams.
Yeah, I see that. I see your list here. The lowest on your list is raspberries.
That's one of many lists. Raspberries, that's considered a high oxalate food, 48 milligrams in a 100-gram serving. Tofu is also kind of high, 235 milligrams in a 100-gram serving. But the point is spinach, rhubarb. Okay, we're not eating a lot of rhubarb, but spinach, we are eating a lot of. And many, many fast food places or restaurants that are hip and are offering smoothies, many will only offer spinach as the green base. And so if you think you're doing yourself a favor, you may be getting too much spinach. And that's my only point here. My point is, don't be afraid of foods with high oxalates. unless you are prone to oxalate, calcium, kidney stones. But just pay attention. Dr. Furman recommends consuming less than 25% of your green intake with spinach, because spinach is a nutritious food, but we need to have variety. And that's my only point here. I don't want to make spinach look like a bad food to avoid, but too much of this good thing is not a good thing.
Yeah, you know, and I think a lot of people probably transitioning as this person that you led with,
Yeah, the story that I was sharing before.
story that you were sharing. I think people that are new to getting off meat are overly concerned with protein, and they think, you know, because of marketing, spinach is
Oh,
an iron.
Popeye.
Yeah, because of iron, you know, they think, oh, I'm not going to get any iron anymore. I'm not going to get any protein anymore. So I've got to overdo it with the one green vegetable that I know from my childhood is going to make me strong and keep my muscles going. And that's spinach because of Popeye. I know I did the same thing with iron. I thought, okay, now that I'm not going to eat meat, I'm not going to get enough iron. And so I'm going to have to just, you know, consume a lot of raisins because I understand that raisins have a lot of iron. And this was me thinking this a long time ago when going vegan. So maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe people are overdoing the spinach thing because vegans and vegetarians overdo the spinach thing because they think that now they need to supplement that kind of iron and protein.
Yeah, it's definitely about access and education.
What I'm getting at is you don't need to do that because all, as you have mentioned millions of times on this show, that all plant foods contain protein.
Complete protein, all the essential amino acids that we need.
Right. And that's another myth is like, well, if you eat beans, you're going to have to eat rice because then it becomes a complete protein. And that's not true. All plant food contain complete protein.
Yes. What is true is that all plant foods contain all essential amino acids, but each food has each essential amino acid in a different percentage. And when we eat a varied diet, our body collects all of these amino acids in its own little store warehouse and goes to its warehouses to get what it needs when it needs to build protein.
Just like Popeye only opened a can of spinach when he needed
strength.
When he needed strength, right? So even Popeye didn't overdo the spinach, only when necessary.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So there are a lot of foods that have more oxalate content than other foods. And my point is that even these foods that are considered high oxalate foods are not as high as spinach and chard and rhubarb. But you may want to be mindful of this. So I had mentioned that my friend was having these spinach smoothies with almond milk and chia seeds. And chia seeds contain more oxalates than flax seeds. And it may not be that significant for an average person, but for someone sensitive in oxalates, avoiding almonds and almond milk and chia seeds with spinach in a smoothie makes a difference because every milligram counts when you're trying to restore your body's health.
Well, let's talk about smoothies for a second. What would you use instead of almond milk?
Well, you know, that's another good question because soybeans are also considered high in oxalates, and some beans are considered high in oxalates, not as high as spinach, please.
Right.
It's hard because I downloaded a number of different lists and I asked ChatGPT, who always makes mistakes.
Right, they do.
And so it was kind of hard to find a definitive answer. And if you're concerned, you need to do your own research. But personally, we do drink a lot of soy milk, just soybeans and water, no added oils or gums or vitamins or anything. And I find this to be the best choice in terms of plant milks. But, you know, if you have issues with soybeans, you know, there are other.
Here's what I would suggest. If you have a Vitamix or a very high-powered blender, take some oatmeal. Don't take oat milk. Just take oatmeal. Add like a quarter of a cup, and then add your water and your fruit and, you know, whatever little green touch you want, and do it that way. You'll get a really delightful smoothie.
It makes things really creamy.
Creamy. That's what people want. They want it to be creamy.
Yeah. Okay. While we're on the subject of smoothies,
Yes.
can we talk about a few that we've been making lately?
Can
It's
we talk?
been
Yeah, because it's along the same lines and because they have chocolate in it. And you're saying here on your list,
chocolate is another.
cocoa powder, 500 milligrams, 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder contains approximately 54 milligrams of oxalates.
Yeah, I've seen like 54, 63 for a
Is that high?
tablespoon.
Is that high?
Well, that's considered high, but it isn't. If you don't have an oxalate issue, it's not a problem. Cocoa has many health benefits. We read an article not long ago from Dr. Greger that it really helps with wrinkles, and you should consume 1 tablespoon a day. Of course, you want to source your cocoa that is cruelty-free and is tested for cadmium and lead and organic. Every food has a story, and it's so complicated. But
Right.
I want to say that cocoa powder is a good food. We like to add cocoa powder to our smoothies,
Right.
and it's been super hot lately.
The cocoa powder?
No,
Just kidding.
the weather.
The weather.
So we make Frosties, our
Right.
version of Frosties.
And that the other night we made one and I could swear it was malted milk from the old days before I knew any better. It was really good. The other thing I want to say before getting on to your recipe for smoothies that taste like malted milk, you saved your friend's life by telling them that they needed to cut back on spinach because when they did, they
Yeah.
felt better.
Yeah, well, it's an ongoing thing, and hopefully the kidney disease will be reversed. Her doctor did not tell her to avoid spinach. Her doctor didn't test for oxalates. Her doctor told her the standard recommendation to avoid phosphorus, drink more water, stay away from supplementing calcium and vitamin C. And those are all reasonable if you have an issue. Okay, I'm not a doctor and I haven't played one on television. But personally, I believe that the consumption of spinach correlated with her high creatine levels, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, good work, Karen. You are definitely alpha gal.
Oh,
Only in the good way.
in a good way.
You're not a tick.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think what gave the smoothie the other day the malted
I think
flavor.
Yeah, I think it was just it tasted so good.
It just tasted so good. I sometimes I make complicated smoothies and sometimes I make them really simple. Cocoa powder. I use cashew milk this time.
Mm-hmm.
A little vanilla. We didn't have any frozen fruits in the freezer, which is usually a go-to ingredient because it makes it cold and yummy. So I just kept it simple. We had bananas and a couple of dates.
Bananas do an awfully nice job, don't they, in smoothies? I mean,
Well, especially if they're frozen, but if they're not, we had
Yeah.
a tray of ice cubes.
yeah, and they remind me of how we used to make Weight Watchers milkshakes when I was a kid. You'd put ice cubes in there and it was like a frosty.
Mhm.
And that's really good too because it adds volume while not adding calories, as they would say at Weight Watchers.
Another time I used sesame tahini and chocolate and made a
Oh.
halva smoothie.
That was amazing. Yeah.
That was amazing.
Tahini's another great food, a very fine food, and one that I have a tendency to overdo. But it's so good. It's that whole, I've never had this before becoming a vegan. And then once I did, I'm like, ooh, I need more of this. And you can do a lot of really great things with tahini. You could add them to your smoothies. You could mix a little date paste with tahini and just have a really quick, wonderful dessert like that. But of course, you don't want to overdo it. Like anything else that's wonderful, you don't want to overdo. What can we overdo, Karen? Can we overdo broccoli? Because
Well,
broccoli's pretty wonderful.
Oh, yeah. The good thing about most whole foods or minimally processed foods is you can't really eat too much of them because they're loaded with fiber
Right.
and you get full before it gets dangerous.
Yeah. Sometimes you even get a stomach ache. I think I
Yeah.
overdid. I think I overdid it with fiber yesterday, and I
You
got
got gas.
I got a stomach ache with this gas that I thought, okay, being the neurotic that I am, I thought, okay, it's over. I'm now, and it was
Yeah.
gas.
So a few reminders for you, Gary, and other folks while
Right.
eating.
Chew
We
your
we
food.
want to we want to chew. Dr. Furman recommends 32 chews before swallowing. That's
Well,
hard to
before
do.
Furman, there was a lot of other people that recommended 32 chews. Don't give him the credit for
Okay, I won't
32
give him the
chews.
credit, but try it. 32 chews. In addition,
Choo
smaller
choo.
amounts on your fork or on your spoon. Smaller
32.
amounts, Gary.
Yes, no, I know.
Okay.
I inhale my food.
So eating more slowly, smaller amounts, and chewing aids in digestion in the mouth, and that decreases the gas that can occur later.
Hmm. That was me. Sorry about that. Uh, but I digress. Yeah, and the other thing is be mindful. I know you've heard Karen say this many, many times, and I'm here to say that it works. Whenever you're mindful and in the moment when you're eating, it becomes more of a meditation than just something that you're doing to fill the void. Be thankful for all of the farmers. And I just want to circle back, even though they don't need any more press from me. The farms that I was talking about, that 11
Mm.
Madison, the name of the farms is Magic Farms. You can research Magic Farms on the 11 Madison website.
And a moment about farming, just a brief political moment about farming, because I
Mhm.
always feel it's important to get a little political whenever I can. We are in very strange, difficult times.
These are
Some
strange days. These are strange days.
We appear to have an authoritarian government these days. Some would actually say fascist, and I will not disagree. We have difficulty with immigration and deportation of innocent people that have not committed criminal acts. And this is causing a great amount of fear. And it's also putting a lot of people out of business because they've used people who may or may not be here illegally, but are now filled with fear because of the color of their skin, because of the accents that they may have, because their friends and families are getting deported, not getting due processed, not getting the right to an attorney,
Not
and
getting any rights. They're just
not
being
getting any
carted
rights.
off to
And some of them
concentration
are
camps.
exactly are being put in concentration camps because that's what they are. They are being abused, exploited, tortured. It's really terrible. And it comes up with, I mean, we could get selfish about it, but it's going to affect our price of groceries. It already is. Everything's getting higher. Our food availability, more of us are going to be experiencing food scarcity because no farmers, no food. Right, Gary?
No farmers, no food. It's the food that all of us eat. And so we need to speak out and we
Yeah,
need
in
to,
every way that we possibly can. I
and we need
always
to.
like to be mindful about the food that I'm eating and think of all the hands that touched my food, not in a non-hygienic way, but that were involved in bringing the food to my plate. And we live in such a complicated society where there are so many different industries and businesses and people that are involved in bringing the food that we have to our homes and to our plates. And I want to
Right.
be grateful to all of them.
And I'm really grateful. I know I opened and talked about Candle
Oh,
Cafe.
let's talk more about Candle.
Yeah, it's vegan food with a mission. It says that on their website. Its owner, Chef Jorge Pineda, and executive chef Angel Ramos, the culinary team behind New York City's revered Candle Cafe and Candle 79, which Candle 79 is no longer around, but I mean, some of us remember that some of the greatest meals of our lives
Candle Cafe West,
were
Candle Cafe, but now it's
Jorge.
Candle 28.
They have assembled a team of spiritually like-minded, health-conscious, and decidedly plant-based culinary aficionados and are overjoyed to welcome you to Candle. Candle's been around for 30 years. A group of restaurants, as they say on their website. I mean, just check out their website. It will make you hungry just looking at the homepage
Their
with
food
all.
is delicious. Their food is real. the people care.
There's no beyond anything meat or any of that stuff. It's only, if I was to use the word beyond, I would say that Jorge and Angel go above and beyond every time they put out a plate. And, you know, even in the Michelin starred world, you're going to get a plate that's going to get sent back. So, I mean, I want to hear it. I just know that running a restaurant is difficult, and these two guys are doing everything they possibly can to keep in business. Karen and I go there as often as possible. I know they have, you know, they take great pride and great joy in serving plant-based food that isn't highly processed.
I have to add that we're eating SOS free now, Gary and I.
Right.
Salt, oil, and sugar free. We do not eat out as much as we used to because it's next to impossible to find food that is without oil, salt, and sugar. And when you go out, the options are limited. Brown rice and steamed vegetables is
Right.
usually what you can get. And I have no problem with that kind of food. But most people don't find it very interesting. But you go to Candle, they have an oil-free menu, which is already low in salt, and you can ask them to make it salt-free as well.
Yeah, it's wonderful. You know, yes, we're giving 11 Madison all of this attention because it's, you know, glitzy and all of that. And yet, if you look at the website at Candle, you will say to yourself, that's a place I want to go. I'm going to feel comfortable there. I'm going to get comfort food if I want it. I'm going to get SOS free food if I want it. I'm even going to get a dessert if I'm on an SOS free diet that's raw, that's made with sweetened with dates. And we get that when we go. I think we need to talk as much about these places as we do about the ones that are notorious.
Absolutely. And I think we need to go tonight, Gary.
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I mean, they are really just wonderful guys, and they're working themselves.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
crazy.
Really a hard
And they have a
business.
full bar. I mean, the bar, and they waited like many, many months before the liquor license came through. They kept running them around, and, you know, the bureaucracy, the red tape, but they hung in there and they got their liquor license, and now they're serving great drinks, and they're also serving amazing non-alcoholic drinks. If you want a green juice, I'm sure
they've got it.
I'm sure they'll make it for you without spinach. You know, I mean, they'll go above and beyond. So
yeah,
can't talk about these guys enough. Back to you, Karen.
Here at the Responsible Eating and Living Test Kitchen, we're always creating new things. I haven't posted new recipes in quite a while, but I'm working on a few.
Yes, and they're delicious, if I may say so myself.
There was one that we did versions of a long time ago, and I'm kind of bringing it back. I mentioned it when I was talking to Sarah Spear, the founder of Tootie's Tempeh, and I made this recipe yesterday. It's yummy, where I use Tootie's Tempeh. You can use other versions of tempeh, but the question is why? I need to remind you that something I learned from talking to Sarah Spear is that most tempeh is made wrapped in plastic. It's cooked in plastic. And that's not a good thing because plastic can degrade with heat, and we don't want plastic nanoparticles in our food. And tempeh is a yummy food.
Now, if you buy this tempeh, this Tootie's tempeh,
yes,
it will be wrapped in plastic.
Yes,
but don't think that it was cooked in plastic.
It was not cooked in plastic.
It wasn't.
And as a result, the flavor, for those of you who have an evolved palate,
an evolved palate. And if you don't, you can buy one at your nearest neighbor. Oh, no, sorry.
Anyway, this tempeh doesn't come with certain flavors that other tempehs have. It's really yummy. So I used the Tootie's tempeh, and I made, what are we going to call it? A pistachio encrusted tempeh filet, something like that.
Of course.
But this version is wrapped in nori, then wrapped in rice paper, and then dipped in a dredging liquid, and then coated with a breading. The breading in this case was pistachios, celery seed, dill, smoky paprika, and pepper. but you can use any mix you like. You could use a seed if you have a nut allergy. You could use a different nut. You could mix up your seasonings if you want a different feeling. I was trying to go with kind of like fish seasonings and Old Bay kind of feeling with the celery seed and dill. And it's yummy and it's baked.
Yeah, and you could even use your favorite breading if you want to use bread. You could
You
even
could use a breading bread, right?
you could even use, you don't have to use the high fat pistachios, the expensive and high fat pistachios, but you can also just use your regular old breading recipe that you like.
We started with this nut or seed based breading for a bunch of reasons. One was to get a gluten-free version, but also when you're baking and not frying, baking with the nut or seed breading gives it that rich fried feeling
Right.
without being fried and gives you more nutrition. I think it's rather genius, actually.
Why is it that I'm always hungry after talking to you?
I am so hungry, but we have a few of those pistachio encrusted tempeh fillets
Yes.
waiting.
That's right.
Yeah. Another recipe that I'm working on. Stay tuned. Let me know if you're interested. Send me an email at info@realmeals.org and you'll be first on the list to receive this recipe. I made blintzes recently, which is a lovely traditional food for some of us in the Eastern European, Ashkenazi kind of circles. Blintzes are a nice crepe that are often filled with a sweetened cheese or blueberries or a combination. And I made a version using our almond ricotta, which is just almonds soaked in water. And then I will add a little of a sweet miso, which ultimately works out to very, very, very low added sodium. So I'm not going to stress about that because it is very, very low sodium, but it just gives enough of a kick. If I'm going to eat added sodium, I make sure it's below 200 milligrams.
Right.
You know, when we're doing an SOS-free diet, there are.
And how much is
little...
that? How much is that? 200 milligrams. Is that like a quarter teaspoon or is that less? Is that a pinch? Karen, I want to remind all of those folks who did You Can't Take It With You in high school that there's a great line that the Grand Duchess Olga Katrina says, "The Tsar, he always said to me, Olga, do not be stingy with the blintzes." So you could remember that as you're making Karen's
Thank
recipe.
you. Well, there's 2,400 milligrams of sodium in a teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
And some would say that we should look for, at the most, 1,500 milligrams of added salt per day if you're going to have added salt. But I'm not going for any of that. 200 milligrams of salt is less than a tenth of a teaspoon.
So a tenth of a teaspoon is a little tiny bit of salt. You could actually count the granules probably.
Yeah, and if you want to do very close to SOS free and you feel like you need to add a little, I mean, adding a pinch here and there is fine. I also want to say that in this pistachio encrusted tempeh fillet recipe, we use rice paper, which is rice based on rice and tapioca. And that also has like 150 milligrams of sodium per sheet. So there is a little bit of salt in that as well. I'm doing all the disclaimers here and just.
Is that added salt or is that just from the sea?
It's added.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's depressing. So
it's not depressing.
I'm kidding. For those of you who want to rid your life of salt, it's also in products.
Added salt. We have to say added salt because we need sodium in our diets.
Added
and we
salt.
get it naturally in foods like sodium and celery, and we get all kinds of minerals from the plant foods that we eat. But adding more is not necessary, and in many cases, not a good idea.
Got you. As always, well said. Karen, well said.
Gary.
Yes.
Let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap this up like a tempeh encrusted.
Tempeh fillet. Yeah.
Tempeh
pistachio encrusted tempeh fillet.
Right. Let's wrap it up like a Yeah, what you just said. And let's make sure it's Tootie's tempeh.
Make sure it's today's tempeh. Yeah.
So it's not a wrapped in plastic before you
Cook it.
encrust it in pistachio. And remember the Grand Duchess Olga Katrina's words. Don't be stingy with the blintzes. Those blintzes were really good.
Oh, I wanted to say I haven't posted that recipe yet because I want to make sure I have a gluten-free blintz version to add because I used einkorn flour, which is the only wheat flour we use here in the Responsible Eating and Living Test Kitchen. It's an organic, ancient version of wheat that we really like, but I want to come up with the right kind of gluten-free version that meets all of my specifications, and I haven't quite done that yet, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And you know what? Soon there will be a cookbook.
Oh, we've been talking about that for a
Yeah,
long time.
I have to keep saying it. Soon there will be a cookbook.
Soon.
I think we waited this long because
Ah,
the SOS free recipes you're coming up with, the world needs to see these.
yeah, they're pretty amazing,
They're
right?
amazing. You're coming
Yeah.
up with some great recipes, chef. Well done, chef.
Thanks, Chef. And
All right.
thank all of you for listening and joining us today on It's All About Food. Find us at responsibleeatingandliving.com. Send emails to info@realmeals.org and
Have
a
delicious.
week,
Bye, Karen.
everybody. Bye, Gary. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.